Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to Gerard V. Thank you for using my Tesla referral link and congratulations on your new Tesla. It's been a while, so here's some video footage as a reminder that there's a statistical category, accidents avoided, that will never be reported on when it comes to FSD, but that doesn't mean it's not important. If you scrub through this slowly, you can see the van does put its brakes on right here, so it does realize what it's about to do and stops. But had there been a driver not paying attention that just carried on perfectly straight, there may have been a collision. So just remember when the FSD safety data comes out to bring up the talking point, accidents avoided. And here's a pretty impressive clip of 12.6.1. So FSD slowly peeks around the corner right here, sees the car coming and waits, and then proceeds with the opening. And then this clip from Tesla Chan of FSD 13.2.2 on the Cybertruck navigating out of the Disneyland parking lot, which is rather complex at certain points. Ray for Tesla shared a video interview of Lei Jun, who is Xiaomi's CEO, saying that Xiaomi is still 5 to 10 years behind Tesla, who is still the benchmark for EVs. He also went on to say how Xiaomi was using the first principle thinking method as they learned from Tesla, what I like to call the Tesla ripple effect. Ray shared another video of a former Huawei autonomous driving exec, Xu Xing, talking about FSD. He said, "If you insist on having me choose a benchmark today, frankly, I would still choose FSD because I truly believe the overall quality of the American team and their spirit of innovation are genuinely admirable. After trying it out myself, I can see that they have many unique strengths in terms of tech, and in some areas, they're even ahead by a significant margin. It's okay to acknowledge it." Maybe it's just me, but in 2025, I highly value honesty and candor, especially in the business environment. And you know, for a while it was unspoken how much the Chinese auto and AI industries really admired Tesla and took them seriously, learning as much as they could from what Tesla was doing. To have a foreign branded, higher price vehicle as the #1 seller in 2024 in China confirms that in the most competitive EV market in the world, consumers love what Tesla has to offer. And all of these Chinese auto companies talking about moving to end-to-end neural nets has only happened after Tesla went public with version 12. Say what you will about the Chinese, but they have tried to copy Tesla closely and are now reaping those rewards. But it's great to hear executives share how far ahead Tesla really is, unlike competing CEOs here in America that duck the question or try to hype up their own ADAS programs, rather than just tipping the cap to how Tesla has pushed so many industries forward nearly single-handedly. Ray for Tesla also shared that former Huawei exec said Chinese competitors can learn from Tesla but are limited by training compute. His current company takes a hybrid approach to tackle autonomy, yes, end-to-end, but still using a rule-based approach as well. Why are some of these Chinese companies limited when it comes to compute? Well, at least in part because of the US and their implementation of those stringent export controls for the most advanced AI chips. Chinese companies are restricted from buying leading-edge chips like Nvidia's A and H100s. I know sometimes the topics I share on the channel may be a bit more boring, like AI regulations, but if you follow the breadcrumbs and how these things actually play out in the long term, you begin to see that, well, they do actually have somewhat profound implications. So not only are most of these Chinese automakers admitting they're years behind Tesla when it comes to FSD and other technology, but also their chances of catching Tesla are hindered because they're compute constrained, really with no end in sight. That's why when people like Gary Black say that when Tesla solves for unsupervised, then pretty much everybody else will have it within 2 to 3 years, I'm just like, how are you coming to this conclusion? One other point I want to make here requires a bit of reading between the lines, but this DeepSeek company is a Chinese AI company that's producing some of the frontier or leading edge LLMs, and they're largely known for open sourcing their work. Andrej Karpathy highlighted how DeepSeek's version 3 LLM only used 2,048 GPUs for 2 months and had the performance of other clusters using between 16,000 and 100,000 GPUs. Andrej compared it to Llama 3 in its 405 billion parameter model using 30.8 million GPU hours, while DeepSeek version 3 only used 2.8 million GPU hours, or around 11 times less compute. So my point here, as I've been trying to make, is that this AI game is far more than just raw compute and raw data. I've seen plenty of people out there saying, well, if these other companies have a lot more data, whether it's synthetic or real, and then they just buy a bunch of compute, they're going to be able to catch up to Tesla no problem. But as DeepSeek has proved, there's a ton of optimization that can happen just from how you decide to handle the data, the quality of that data, the algorithms, the weight of the neural net, and how you adjust all of those. There's an entire world happening here that most people just aren't aware of. So not only does Tesla have the best data set, one of the largest compute clusters in Cortex, and some of the best AI talent in the world, but they've been optimizing their neural nets and algos for years, continually removing dead weight as they make advances, which is what Yoon Tasai was referring to when he compared FSD 13 to version 3 of the SpaceX Raptor engine. That's just my long-winded way of trying to make the point that it is not just about how much compute and how much data. Yes, that's a big part of the story, but there's far more nuance and a lot more to the story than just those two factors. So even a company like Waymo, who has access to deep pockets, isn't going to be able to just throw a bunch of money at this problem and effectively have it solve itself. Doing that would likely lead to inefficiencies, and these companies need to get in the mindset of DeepSeek and really constrain their compute to push the engineers to be a bit more creative with what they have. Part of the reason I got the Model 3 Performance is to spread the word about how special these cars really are. I want everyone to have an experience when they ride with me. To optimize that experience, I always want the interior of my car smelling great, because that's a huge part of somebody having a pleasant experience. I've tried car fresheners, but honestly, they smell cheap to me, and oftentimes it's way too much scent. I also don't want my passengers or myself constantly smelling toxic chemicals, even if it smells good. So, after a long search, I found Drift, the sponsor of today's video. I chose them in part because they create air care products for your car and home using only premium essential oil blends with no harmful chemicals. They're vegan, cruelty-free, and pet-friendly. They do offer a subscription, so every 30 days you can have a new scent, and they also have a limited edition scent of the month inspired by the season. I have the Winter Zen one right now, and I have to be honest, I literally kept the bag at my desk to sniff every now and then because I'm telling you, it's that good and calming. They offer products as wood, stone, or metal, depending on your preference. I'm trying the wood version this month in the Model 3, but I'll probably go back to stone as it just blends with the interior a bit better. You just attach the scent block to the included clip and it magnetically snaps in. Pro tip, keep it off your surfaces when you first open it because it will be oily, but once it dries out a bit, you can really place it anywhere. Don't forget they have home scent diffusers as well, and their products range from $9 to $15, so very reasonable. If you'd like to please your passengers or guests in your home, you can use my code DL55 to get 55% off your first month at drift.co, or you can use the QR code on the screen. Enjoy. On Tesla's official NACS blog page, they now have BMW, Genesis, Hyundai, JLR or Jaguar Land Rover, Kia, Lucid, and Mercedes all under the coming soon headline. Barring any further delays, most of these companies should have access to the supercharger network sometime in the first half of this year. I saw Drive Tesla Canada point this out first, but the new Model Y apparently has a two-piece trunk instead of the one piece on the outgoing model. It looks like this line at the bottom of the glass separates this top portion from the bottom portion. And Tesla may have chosen to do that because one of the most common areas for damage is this rear bumper, whereas previously, if this part was damaged, you also had to replace the top part because it was one large piece. But now from a repairability standpoint, think insurance prices. If there's damage to this bottom part, you don't also have to replace the top part. If you're not familiar, a big reason why Tesla insurance rates are still sometimes higher than people would like is because the cost of repairs. Here's a look at the outgoing model, and you can see all the way up to here, this does appear to be all one piece. Not only that, but the outgoing model has this rounded glass, whereas the new model has a traditional corner or a flat squared off piece of glass, which may lower manufacturing costs and complexity. Thus, as Tesla continues to innovate and push for more manufacturing efficiencies, they also may be adding some tweaks to focus a bit more on the repairability side, so over time, insurance prices can continue to come down thanks to repair prices ultimately coming down. Cox Automotive put out its Q4 2024 EV sales report for the United States. Focusing on year-to-date for 2024, Tesla came in at over 633,700, whereas the second place brand was Ford at 97,800. Tesla sales were down 5.6% for the year. However, their market share is still at 48.7%, as we know, with only 5 models. And yes, at 48.7% market share, I think it's fair to say that roughly for every 2 EVs sold in the US, one of them was a Tesla in 2024. Another note I wanted to highlight, Mercedes EV sales were down 41% year over year. Volkswagen's EV sales were down 52% and Volvo's were down 62%. Just remember, most of these companies are ramping new models or discontinuing old ones. So yeah, Tesla was down 5.6% for the year, but they also had the new Model 3 introduction and that ramp at Fremont that took a bit longer than expected throughout Q2. And finally, I know everybody's been waiting on Cybertruck sales. For Q4, the number was 12,991, and for all of 2024, the number was 38,965, which means yes, the Cybertruck was the best-selling EV truck in the US for 2024. The F-150 Lightning came in second at 33,500. And then just rounding to the nearest 1,000, the Rivian R1T did 11,000 for all of 2024, and the R1S did 27,000. The Hummer truck and SUV did 14,000, and the Chevy Silverado did 7,000. So for last year, it really was the Cybertruck, the F-150 Lightning, and then everybody else. Cox Automotive also shared this chart ranking them in order in terms of sales for 2024, top to bottom. Of course, the Model Y and Model 3 are in a league of their own. From there, rounding out the top 5, the Mach-E was in third, the Ioniq 5 came in fourth, and the Cybertruck was the 5th best-selling EV of any kind for last year. And as James Stevenson articulated in a different way, all 20 of Tesla's competitors on the top 25 list combined did not sell as many EVs last year in the US as Tesla did alone. Scrolling down a bit, the Model S had the lowest sales of any Tesla model at 12,400. However, that was good for the 24th spot on this list, so that means that all 5 Tesla vehicles cracked the top 24 in US EV sales for 2024. I did want to shout out the Honda Prologue coming in the 7th spot because remember, they did not begin deliveries until March of 2024. Looking ahead, Cox Automotive predicts that 1 out of every 4 vehicles sold this year will be electrified, with fully electric vehicles making up about 10% of the market total, which would be up from 7.5% last year. And then of course hybrids and plug-ins would account for another 15% of the market, leaving the ICE market at 75% of total volume. As I've said before, I do not want to become the gatekeeper here, so I'm going to pass this along, but don't shoot the messenger. This one is from Business Insider, so I am highly skeptical. With that disclaimer, the word is that Tesla is moving some workers off the Cybertruck production line to the Model Y line. The same employees noted that during meetings meetings with supervisors, they learned Tesla's scaling down its Cybertruck team and plan to produce fewer parts for the truck during the first quarter of 2025. If you've been following along the past few weeks, you will have seen there have been some hints that there may be a slight Cybertruck slowdown, so we'll continue to monitor through quarter one. The weekly Tesla China number came in at 7,800. Comparing that to the same week in quarter four, that number was 8,500. So now quarter over quarter, Tesla China is down 22.6%. Then week two of quarter one last year was 7,400. And so now year over year, Tesla China is up 25.5%. If you remember, Tesla did an excellent job with the Model 3 changeover last year at Shanghai, so hopefully they can do the same thing with the new Model Y. I wanted to give everyone some context behind who James Thorne actually is, as he's been posting more about Tesla as of late. He said Tesla is positioned to lead the AI revolution, emphasizing autonomy and robotics with a target of a $2 trillion market cap this year. With Tesla's market cap at 1.27 trillion at the close today, that implies about a 57% upside. James Thorne is the chief market strategist at Wellington Altus. I did some digging, and Wellington has been ranked the #1 investment firm in Canada. And not just once, but they earned this title 5 years in a row. As of last year, they surpassed $30 billion with a B in assets under management. The firm has been focused on a new investment advisor acquisition strategy, so that certainly helps to boost your AUM numbers. And the company was only founded in 2017, so it's relatively young, and for last year, it was one of Canada's top growing companies. All that to say, as far as I can tell, this firm seems rather legit. So yeah, I would say this prediction carries some weight, and we'll be tracking it throughout the course of this year. Bank of America is telling people to stay away from Tesla stock for now. The analyst downgraded Tesla from buy to neutral, but simultaneously upped the price target to $490. But as you know, I only highlight these if there's something I want to call out in what they said. Talking about FSD adoption, they said it's risen sharply, climbing from 22% in quarter one 2023 to nearly 60% among Cybertruck buyers in 2024. Of course, the question becomes, where in the world is John Murphy getting this data? More importantly though, I wanted to contrast his forecast for the number of Tesla robotaxis on the road. He's expecting 23 million Tesla vehicles will be FSD capable by 2030. Just yesterday, we talked about how Adam Jonas from Morgan Stanley was only expecting 7.5 million by 2040. My point here is this: most Wall Street analysts are really just guessing. Nobody actually has any idea how the next 10 to 15 years are going to go. My point here is this: most Wall Street analysts really have no idea how the next 5 to 10 years are going to go, as you can tell from their varying predictions. What that means is there's still plenty of uncertainty, and Wall Street does not like to invest when there is uncertainty, which yes, creates alpha or opportunity for retail or anybody that can see ahead of the curve. Chrysler's electric crossover that was supposed to debut this year but then was delayed until 2026 has now been put on hold until further notice. Any spending on the program is to be paused, and the CEO said the program is paused for now as we assess the market and our customers' needs and wants. In what feels like another beat the buzzer scenario, the SEC today has sued Elon, alleging failure to properly disclose Twitter ownership. They're alleging Elon committed securities fraud in 2022 by failing to disclose his ownership in Twitter and buying shares at artificially low prices. In response, Elon's lawyer said in an email that this action is an admission by the SEC that they can't bring an actual case. He said Elon has done nothing wrong and called the suit a sham and the result of a multi-year campaign of harassment culminating in a single-count ticky-tack complaint. In the complaint, the SEC is seeking a jury trial and asks that Elon be forced to pay disgorgement of his unjust enrichment as well as a civil penalty. Yet again, we might have to take the wait-and-see approach here, as under Trump, Gary Gensler is no more. The new guy is supposed to be Paul Atkins. And under Trump, there are supposed to be numerous changes at the SEC, so it's somewhat of a question mark how how this lawsuit is going to play out post January 20th. But for now, the SEC is claiming that Elon underpaid Twitter shareholders by over $150 million during the time when he did not disclose how much of Twitter he was actually buying. Tesla stock closed the day at $396.36, down 1.72%, while the NASDAQ was down 0.23%. It was an average volume day for Tesla. Don't forget, if you're interested, head to drift.co, use my code DL55 to get that 55% off. The link is in my description, and I do not think you'll be disappointed. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video. If you did, you can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.